Celeste and Haley were both in the herbalism classroom with Lydia. The girls were all doing their projects for their teacher. They had to do a journal study on a plant. They had chosen the Hedon flower. "So, how was your day with Jack yesterday?" Lydia asked. "My day with him was good, Lydia," Celeste replied. "Jack asked me to meet him in the enchanted hallway today." "Nice, is he gonna ask you out?" Haley asked. "Like, does he have a crush on you?" "I'm not sure, Haley. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't," Celeste replied while blushing. "You're blushing, Celeste. You do like someone," Lydia teased. "No, I don't," Celeste replied. "Yes, you do, Celeste. Me and Haley can tell you like Jack," Lydia teased again. "Oh, okay," Celeste replied, finally admitting that she had a crush on Jack. "I do like Jack. A lot." "You do?" Haley asked. Celeste nodded. "Well, I already had that feeling that you did have a crush on him." "I know Celeste when she likes someone. I've known her for a very long time," Lydia said. The girls worked on their projects while talking about boys. As soon as Celeste and Lydia were down near the dinner hall, Celeste looked around, but she couldn't see Jack. "Where is she?" Celeste asked. "He should have been in the enchanted hallway by now." "I'm sure he'll show up, Celeste," Lydia said, as Lampert showed up with a flower in his mouth. Lydia then took the flower and placed it on Celeste's head and tucked it into her hair. "Boys do like to take their time." "I guess you're right about that, Lydia. But I'm really nervous," Celeste replied as she picked up Lampert in her arms. "What makes you nervous, Celeste?" Lydia asked. "What if Jack doesn't like me? Like, what if he acts like a creep?" Celeste asked. "Celeste, just don't think of the negatives," Lydia suggested. "He likes you a lot. Robert told me about that. Plus, you like him too, and he's not a creep." "I guess you're right on that note, Lydia. I'm just nervous, that's all," Celeste replied. Hey Lydia, why don't you join me and Robert and Haley in the garden watch?" Zach asked as Haley, and Robert appeared from behind the girls. "Sure, Zach," Lydia replied as he turned to Celeste. "Let me know how it all went." Celeste smiled and Lydia nodded, and then she headed off into the enchanted hallway. Most of the students were in their classes, so it was mostly quiet. Jack showed up by tapping on her shoulder by surprise. Celeste got startled when she turned to see Jack. "Jack, you startled me," Celeste chuckled nervously. "Sorry about that, Celeste. I just thought you were doing something," Jack began. "Sorry it took me a while to get here. I had to help Zach and Robert with a project in the observatory. We're working on a project on planets at least. At least I'm here now." "I see. What's going on, Jack?" Celeste asked. Jack told her and led her down the hallway, and there was an entrance to the other room. "I want to show you something. My mom's been working on a music room," Jack began as he and Celeste walked until they were inside the music room. It was still a work in progress. "It's not finished yet, but it will be eventually," Jack said as he and Celeste took a look around the music room. "The school never had a music room before. This is very nice, Jack. But when will this room be finished?" Celeste asked as she looked at the instruments. "My mom's hoping to have it finished at some point. But here's something right here that she put out last night," Jack replied, showing Celeste a piano. "This was my grandmother's, but she gave it to my mom." "How old is this piano?" Celeste asked. She sat down with Jack to try out a few keys, and they all worked just fine. Jack got his carving knife that he always carries with him. "This piano has been in the family for years, and it works very well," Jack said as he tested a few keys out. "Wow, surprisingly it still works after a bunch of years," Celeste chuckled as Jack carved his name initial on the piano. He gave the carving knife to Celeste, so Celeste carved her initial on the piano. Then she carved a heart around her and Jack's initials, as well as put a plus sign on the heart. "What did you draw?" Jack asked as he saw the drawing that Celeste did around the initials. "Is that a potato?" "It's a heart. I knew it." "Well, Jack, there's been something I really want to tell you," Celeste began. "So, I guess now is the time." "Sure, Celeste. What is it?" Jack asked. "I like you, as in more than just a friend," Celeste replied. Jack's face began blushing. "I'm sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable. I just had to say how I feel about you." "You're fine, dear. I had a feeling that you did," Jack said. "You did?" Celeste asked. "Yeah, and I feel the same way about you too, Celeste," Jack replied. "I've had a feeling that you were going to have a crush on me." "Same could be said about you, Jack," Celeste chuckled while blushing. "Am I dreaming or is this real?" "Man, it's real. I wasn't expecting us to tell each other that we had a crush on each other," Jack was soon interrupted when Celeste locked her lips with his, forming a kiss between them. The kiss had lasted about a minute before breaking away. Jack was stunned. He had his first kiss, and it was from his childhood friend. "How do you feel about us together, Jack?" Celeste asked. "I'm good with us together. How about you?" Jack replied with a question. "I feel the same way you do, Jack. We should spend more time together more," Celeste said. "We'll be able to get to that together, dear. Is it okay if I call you that?" Jack asked as he pulled Celeste into a hug with him. "Of course, Jack. I like you a lot," Celeste replied. Meanwhile, at the dinner hall, Lydia was with her friends as Jack and Celeste showed up. The two were holding hands. "You see what I see, Lydia?" Zach whispered in Lydia's ear. "Yeah, Zach. There's Celeste and Jack," Lydia whispered back. "They're holding hands. I see them," Haley joined in. "I see that too. I think they're dating now," Robert added. "I knew Jack was going to ask her." "I've had a feeling that Celeste was going to be with him," Lydia replied. "I just knew it because she had a crush on him." "Hey everyone," Celeste said as she and Jack sat down for lunch at the dinner table. "So what's everyone up to?" "Nothing much. We have classes after lunch," Robert said. Lampert the line cub then meowed. He wanted some food. "Oh, Lampert, you want food too," Lydia said, then handed Lampert a piece of ham. "Here you go." Lydia fed Lampert and turned to Celeste. "What are you and Jack going to do after lunch?" We're not sure. Maybe we'll go see Alvandar," Celeste suggested. "I bet he'll be happy for me and Jack." "And what about your father, Celeste?" Haley asked. "How will he feel about you two dating, including Nancy?" "We'll just have to think about that, but we'll tell them eventually," Celeste replied. "I don't think my father would mind us dating." "I'm sure that he and my mom will accept us together," Jack added. Later on after lunch, Celeste and Jack headed off to see Alvandar in the glade. The tree looked at Celeste and Jack, and they were holding hands while walking towards them. "Celeste, Jack, what a wonderful surprise," Alvandar greeted them. "Alvandar, me and Jack are dating now, as he had told me how he felt about me, Celeste said to Alvandar. "Celeste told me on how she felt about me too. I'm just glad she and I started dating," Jack added. "It's nice to see you two are dating together, Jack and Celeste. Robert and Lydia did tell me that you two had a crush on each other," Alvandar replied. "Then they came here the other day and told me about it." "Yeah, and I think we both have a lot of things in common," Jack said. "That's right, and we're going to tell them about my father and his mother, when we get the name, that is, and the time," Celeste added. "I'm sure they'll be happy for the both of you. It'll take time to settle into that fact," Alvandar said, "but they'll settle in with that eventually." "Thanks, Alvandar," Celeste said as she and Jack sat under the tree, and that's when a hidden flower grew from the ground. "Here, my dear, a hidden flower for you." Jack picked up the flower and handed it to his girlfriend. "Thanks, Jack. You're very sweet," Celeste replied as she kissed his cheek. "I'm sure hope my father and Nancy will warm up to this." "I'm pretty sure they will, Celeste. Nathaniel really likes to see his daughter grow up," Jack began. "And that is you. You're all grown up now, Celeste." "I guess we should tell him and your mother," Celeste replied. Meanwhile, Lydia just got a postcard from Lila, and she was informed that her cousin was in France still, so she sent Lydia a snow globe of the Eiffel Tower. "Look what Lila gave it to me, Robert. It's a snow globe." Lydia showed her gift to Robert. "That's very neat, Lydia." "That's the Eiffel Tower," Robert pointed out. Haley and Zach also saw Lydia's new gift. "That's from France. What is it like up? Is that where Lila is?" Zach asked. "Yes, Zach, and she's visiting there," Lydia replied. "She sent me this. Well, she really did send me this on the last postcard that she was going to send me something. From France," Lydia said. "Well, it's amazing, Lydia. I bet that's the coolest thing your cousin ever sent so far," Haley commented. "Thanks, Haley. I'll show to Jack and Celeste," Lydia said as Jack and Celeste both walked towards their friends outside near the front entrance of the school. "Hey, y'all," Jack said as he and Celeste approached their friends. "What y'all doing?" "I got this new snow globe from Lila. She spent from France," Lydia replied. "That looks like an Eiffel Tower inside. It's really neat," Celeste said. "Yeah, and it looks really amazing," Lydia sighed. "Someday we should all go there." "That'll be amazing. We could go there someday if all of us will go," Zach replied. Then he walked back inside. Celeste and Jack both held hands as they smiled at each other. "Here they are. Hey, Jack, Celeste, I got something to show you two." Lydia called as she waved her hand at Celeste and Jack. The duo then walked towards their friends. "What is it, Lydia?" Celeste asked. "Lila sent me the snow globe," Lydia replied. "It showed Celeste and Jack what she got in the package. It's the Eiffel Tower inside the globe, and it's all the way from France." "Neato, Lydia. We should visit France someday," Celeste said. "Maybe someday we can, and that will be an adventure for us," Lydia chuckled as she ruffled her best friend's hair. As the group of friends were chatting and laughing, the sound of the school bell rang, and all the students had their next classes to go to, so they all went inside the school. While in art class, Celeste and Jack both worked together and they painted a picture of themselves. It was hard, sure, but it took time and effort. "What do you think, Jack?" Celeste asked, admiring the picture that they both painted. "It looks really good on your end," Jack replied. "Mine is just as good as yours." "It just needs one more thing," Celeste said as she dipped her paintbrush into a pink paint and drew a heart on it. "There we go, Jack. Now it looks more interesting." "It's wonderful, Celeste. Your paintings are awesome," Jack replied. "We could take it to your room after it dries, of course." "I think I know where it should go," Celeste said. A day or so later, Nathaniel was walking towards the dinner hall when he noticed something in the garden watch. Jack and Celeste were chatting and giggling as well. "Is my daughter talking to Jack?" Nathaniel asked himself. Could it be possible that she and Jack were dating? Nathaniel asked himself another question. "I must tell Nancy about this. My daughter is all grown up." Nathaniel walked inside the dinner hall. Nancy was inside the dinner hall as well. She was doing some paperwork. "Hey, Nathaniel, I didn't see you come in," Nancy began. "I just finished some of my paperwork for school." "Nancy, there's something I saw while walking there," Nathaniel said. "What do you mean?" Nancy asked. "I hope nothing's wrong." "Nothing's wrong, Nancy. I just saw your son and my daughter in the garden watch," Nathaniel replied. "Yeah, I saw them outside too," Nancy said. "I don't see a problem with our children hanging out together. What's up with that?" "I've been having some vibes that Celeste and Jack are dating. Nathaniel explained before Nancy cut him off. "Yeah, I've been getting those vibes too, Nathaniel. They're adults now, like how old is Celeste?" asked Nancy. "She's 18, and I'm sure your son is the same age as her," Nathaniel said, of course, with a reply. But, of course, Nancy nodded her head. "Yes, Jack is the same age as Celeste. He is 18, Nancy said. "I don't see a problem with our kids dating. I can see that as a blessing." "How do you know? Did you notice anything up with Jack?" Nathaniel asked. "I noticed that my daughter was giggling when she was drawing and writing and even reading a book." "My son's been like that too, and drawing hearts on papers and even paintings," Nancy said. "I think my son likes your daughter, like a lot." "Come to think of it, I have a feeling my daughter is feeling the same way about your son," Nathaniel said. "I think Jack is Celeste's boyfriend. I would have intervened, but I can't do that. My daughter would hate me for that." "Nathaniel, it's okay. Your daughter is old enough to make her choices. No matter how old she gets, she'll still be your little girl," Nancy reassured Nathaniel. "Your son is just the same, Nancy. He'll still be your mama's boy no matter how old he gets," Nathaniel replied. "Let's wait till the kids tell us, as we don't want to assume anything right now." "You're right, Nathaniel. Let's not jump into conclusions and see what happens," Nancy agreed. Meanwhile, in the garden watch, Celeste and Jack walked towards the bench where they both sat down. "This is so nice, Jack. Just us together," Celeste said to her boyfriend. "It sure is, Celeste. I'm so glad we found some alone time, just the two of us," Jack replied. "I think we should tell our parents just so they know," Celeste began. "My father's been acting strange, and he's been mumbling things under his breath." "That's weird. My mother's been doing the same thing," Jack replied. "I think we should talk to both our parents together. I think they need to know," Celeste said. "They're eventually going to find out about us dating, so why not we tell the both of them?" Celeste and Jack then went to the front entrance of the school. Nancy and Nathaniel were chilling by the fountain. "Here's our kids," Nathaniel said. "Mom, Dad, me and Celeste have something to tell you," Jack said. "I know I called you Dad, Nathaniel. I do apologize for that." "That's all right," Nathaniel said. "I hope nothing's wrong," Nancy added. "If there's something wrong, we wouldn't be smiling now, would we?" Celeste asked. "I hope you won't get mad with us." "We wouldn't get angry at you, Celeste, unless you break the law or kill someone," Nathaniel replied. "What is it, my dear?" "Jack and I have a confession to make, and I really hope you can accept this," Celeste said. Jack and I have become boyfriend and girlfriend. It's true, Nathaniel. We talked about it the other day, Jack added. Ah, that's why you kids have been giggling and daydreaming, Nancy replied. And you've been drawing hearts and putting J and C on it, Nathaniel added. We wanted to tell you, Father, but Jack and I weren't sure how you and Nancy would react, Celeste said nervously. We're not mad at all, Celeste. Nancy and I are just happy for the both of you, Nathaniel replied proudly. You both are? Jack asked in surprise. Of course, Jack. Now I know you'll treat this young lady very well, Nancy replied. Now you two go have fun together. Just nothing too, well, I guess I think you both get the idea, Nathaniel added. Oh, Father, Celeste laughed as Jack joined in with Nancy and Nathaniel. Nathaniel and Nancy have accepted Jack and Celeste together, and if anything, nothing could tear them apart away from each other.